Hello there, planner friends. Welcome back to my channel. This video is based on your feedback on the last video when all of you said, yes, please share your flip throughs. So I thought that what I would do as we're getting ready to say goodbye to March and hello to April is walk through a quick flip of what March looked like in my planner. Now, if you watched the last video, you know that March was madness and I was in 3 different planners. So I thought it was only fair to show you what all 3 of those look like in March. So I'll try to put chapters here, so if you are only interested in the rings, you can skip to that part, but I thought I would kind of show you the evolution of the planners and how things went. And so let's get started. Except for I just realized I forgot one. I need to get my A6. Hold on. 1 minute. Okay. So now we can really talk about the anarchy that was March. So if you will recall, in our last episode, I talked about how I started out the month in this A6, which, to be honest with you, I absolutely love this. This is a Vanderspec Touch Me that I got a couple years ago, and I used pretty much consistently almost the whole year. I had a couple of other A6s that I used that year that I was using A6, but this one is my favorite. It actually has a few love nibbles from one of my cats, so I'll never sell it because I don't know that somebody else would be happy with the fact that there's a couple little teeth marks in the strap there, but for me it doesn't matter. But this is the A6 that I had set up, and dang it if sitting here flipping through it doesn't make me want to go back into my A6, but I'm just going to try to behave myself and not do that. Anyway, let's look at March. So at the beginning of March, I did set this up with the intention of going back into this because I was in that, as I called it in my last video, that ennui phase of plannering and just discontent and wanting something different. So I took this with me on a weekend trip and set it up with the plan to move into my A6 and use it for a while. And then when I came home, I went just completely down the path to crazy town, and that's when I started using the Commit30 Planner and the Sterling Ink Planner and all the other planners. So this really didn't get used very much, but I will show you what I did. So this is actually a card that my husband gave me, and I cut. I love tea, and I love mugs, and he gave me this on a birthday card. I think it was a birthday card, and I just love the front of it, so I cut it apart. And this was the back of the card, and so I cut it and made a dashboard. So I'm not going to flip through every single thing in here, but I will just show you quickly the calendar. So here was March with my Cocoa Daisy stickers. This is the week's monthly that Cocoa Daisy sells, which fits perfectly in the A6 size and in the personal size. So if you like these kind of stickers, this is a nice way to make a little bit of a thematic look for your monthlies without having to do a whole lot of decorating. And this month, for the first time, I used these event stickers, and I really liked them because it just added a little pop of color through the month. So this was March when I set it up. And then here are the weeklies and dailies. So you can see I started March 20, was this March? Yeah, March. Oh no, you know what I did? This was February. So this was the week, February 20th, President's Day. This was the week that I set it up, and I didn't have this size in, I did a trial. So with DIY Fish, you can do a 3-month trial. So it's like March, April, May, January, February, March, whatever the current month is, plus 2 months, you can get a trial. So that's what I did. I ordered this right at the end of the month of February, and so happened that the days lined up for the last 2 weeks of March into February. So that's what I did. So that's why this says March. This is actually February, and I need to make a note of that so I'll remember. But anyway, this is when I set it up. This is the DIY Fish inserts that I love, and you can see here I had the dailies, and that's why I have the hearts here, was to help me remember that it was February, not March. That was a washi tape from Cocoa Daisy. And you can see my dailies are not super full, but you know, it is what it is. These are, this was the beginning of March. So again, from Coco Daisy, this is the blank page that's always at the beginning of the months. And then I glued together the monthly calendar so that I had this tracker. My intent was to use this tracker. You can see that did not happen, partly because I didn't stay in this planner. And then here's my list of things for the month of March. And if you have seen any of my other videos, you'll know that one of the things I do at the beginning of every one of my months is I put this list of tasks that I want to get done in the month. Now, it's more of like almost like a one day someday, but more short term in terms of these things need to get done in the next month or two. So like touching up the kitchen cabinets paint and touching up the hall and stairwell paint. I mean, that's not an urgent thing that has to get done, but it's something that I want to get done. So I keep putting it on my monthly to-do list to remind me, so that one Saturday I'll get up and actually do it. Some other things tend to be like spring break plans, tend to be more specific and time bound. But most of the stuff here is big picture, that, you know, one day someday. And if I don't put it here, it'll never get done. So that's why I do it. At some point I get tired of rewriting it month over month, and that's when I actually do it. It works for me anyway. So here's my last week of February, first week of March. And I also had the Coco Daisy weekly kit for the Hobonichi, which I have found I really like those two sticker kits because they work really well in my setup, because it's a very similar layout to the Hobonichi weeks, and it gives me the ability to do some decoration without a whole lot. So when I do my dailies, I always start with at the top the things that are time bound. If I have things ahead of time that I know of that are time bound, then I do my to-do list. The middle of the page tends to be for notes, like from phone calls or anything like that. That tends to be what's here. And then at the end of the day, I'll add some micro journaling, just some little notes about the day. And then down at the bottom, I usually put books, TV, podcasts, audiobooks, and sometimes I put dinner, although usually I just put dinner over here so that I can see what we had for dinner. So here's the days, and then this is as far as I made it, because you can see that's where my marker was. This was a page marker from the Coco Daisy kit, and that's as far as I made it, and then that's when I went woohoo and moved into another book. So we'll close this one up and we'll look at the Commit 30 just to continue to show you the evolution of what March planning was. So here's the Commit 30, and as I mentioned to you guys when I got this, I had a lot of fun setting it up. I printed pictures and stuck pictures down. I hadn't decided at the point what I was going to use this for, so it was just blank, and I'm not driven by this kind of goal setting, and that's never really worked for me. So I didn't really use it in here. That really wasn't why. I don't know why, to be honest. I bought this planner, but that wasn't it, obviously. So here's my Coco Daisy dashboard. Here's the month at a glance, and I kept it very simple with just a little bit of washi because I didn't know if I was going to like this or use it, so I just left it very simple. And then I'm going to just jump to March. Although I did, as I mentioned to you guys, I did back plan and put pictures and things like that in here. I also put some tabs. These were from, I think I got them from Jet Pens. Or they might be Hobonichi with the wave. I think they are actually Hobonichi stickers, and I had them for Hobonichi weeks from years ago, and I've never used them, so I put them in here because I thought they were fairly sturdy and minimal. And I thought the orange went well with the purple, but of course I'm not using this planner, so it is what it is. Anyway, here's March. So again, minimal decoration. I was trying to figure out how I was going to use this layout. So this was what I had in the beginning of my A6, that monthly task list, because there wasn't really anywhere to do that unless I did something here. So I just put it here. This was TV shows that I wanted to be sure that they had premieres that I wanted to watch this month. And then you dive right into the weeklies. Now, as I mentioned to you guys before, I've divided this up rather than using it by hours. I had this be time-bound appointments. This was my to-do list, and this was notes. So it's very similar to the layout that I have in my rings, At the top here, I was tracking my walking. Down here, I had audiobooks, and then TV shows, and then our dinner. And like I said in my last video, the thing that drove me crazy about this was that there were no lines. This reminded me a lot of the days when I used to plan in an Erin Condren way back. When my girls were little bitty, I used an Erin Condren. And this reminded me a lot of that. And one of the things that drove me crazy about the Erin Condren was the fact that those 3 boxes didn't have lines. And that's part of why I moved out of Erin Condren at some point, because I just need lines. This made me nuts, not having lines then and now. But I did try to make it work because I did like the compactness of this, the lightweight, all those things, and I was really curious to see if I could not have a daily and just have a weekly view, and whether or not that would work for my brain, because I've been so accustomed most of my planning life to having a daily page. I didn't make it, like I said, very, very long. Here is, so this was the first week of March, and you can see literally the very next week is when I left this planner. So there's nothing else after that. So short and sweet in the Commit30. So then we went into this next level of craziness, which was the Sterling Ink Common Planner. This is a beautiful planner, and I understand why everybody loves it so much. It's very well thought out. It's very, as far as I can tell, very well made. It's very classy. I like the minimalist look of it. If I were a bound planner girl, I think this would be my favorite of all the bound planners I've used over the years, including the Franklin Covey, the Hobonichi, the Stalogy, all the other, even, you know, the bigger A5 bound planners that you can get. This, to me, if I were going to use a bound planner, this would be the one I'd use. I really, really like it. Oh, what was the other one? Oh, the Wonderland. That's another one I tried and didn't fall in love with. But this is very well done anyway. Very, very much like this planner. And if I ever went back to a bound book, this would be the book I'd go back to. So I didn't do anything here because I was waiting to see if this was going to stick. I did back plan the monthlies. Here's March. Again, you can see even more minimal because I was like, okay, let's just see where this is going before we spend a lot of time. I do use Post-it notes to mark things in the future. So especially things that are like, don't forget, you need to, this is going to renew or whatever. Here is where I started back planning. So I'm just going to jump to March. And again, same thing here. I divided my page very similar to what I had in the Commit360 because I liked the Commit30 because I liked the way that layout was. The thing that I didn't like about it was not having the dailies. And so that's part of what I thought this was going to solve for me. If you watch my last video, you've already heard all this, so I'll try to keep my commentary to a minimum. But at the top here, I was keeping track of my walking. Then here I was tracking the pollen counts. Then this was going to be time-bound, or was time-bound stuff. This was to-do list. This was notes for the day. And then the bottom part of the page was TV, reading, Audible, and dinners. And then I tried to leave a little bit of room down here so I could put washi. Here's my to-do list. And this, I mean, it worked okay. You can see this was a full week here that, you know, I used it. And here's my cute little kitty cat washi. And I liked it okay. What got me stuck was when I started going into the back for the dailies. And then I was like, no, I missed my rings. So I could see me going back to this at some point. And I've even considered keeping this up to date in parallel so that I have an archive. And I may do that. I haven't decided yet because I do like this planner. But here's this was when I went on spring break with my daughter. You believe my college-age daughter wanted me to go on spring break with her. I just thought that was so sweet. This was last week. And then, of course, I did go ahead and draw the lines in, but there's nothing forward because I wasn't using it. But in the back, where is it? Here's the dailies I set up. So here's that same task. Do you see a trend? It's the same thing, the same stuff. I'm just using it in different ways. Here's what was a menu, because that was something else that I always have in my rings that I didn't have an easy way to do in this. And so I was trying to figure that out. And I thought, well, with this, if I use this back like a bullet journal, then I would do this same thing. So yeah, so that was March in the sterling ink. And then here's Matilda, my ride or die. I have already started setting up for April in here, so you're going to see some April Cocoa Daisy stuff just because I couldn't wait because it was so pretty with the butterflies. And I have to go digging around in my stash because she did a butterfly theme a few years back. It's probably been 5 or 6 years ago maybe. But I want to go back and dig out some of the butterfly stuff I had from that and see if I think the colors are very similar and I can mix and match. So here's my, which by the way, I just have to show you this. I think it's so cute. This was a Cocoa Daisy kit that she did. I'm not a big coffee drinker. I do drink a little bit, but I'm a big tea drinker, but I just really like that. So I had to put it in my planner. Here's the same, you can see it's virtually the same. My planning system doesn't change regardless of what planner I'm in, whether it's a bound book, whether it's rings, whether it's A5, whether it's B6, whether it's A6, whether it's personal, it doesn't matter. My system never changes. The only thing that changes is how I execute that system and whether it's rings or bound. I know what works for me in my brain and the way I plan, so I just try to stick with that. So here's my monthly. Here is the beginning of my weekly and dailies. This is a Cocoa Daisy dashboard that I decorated with a little sticker from the kit. Here's my to-do list. And then here's the tracker that never got filled in. Here's where I started working on a to-do list way back in February and just stuck it in here so I would remember. Here's my weekly pages. And again, same layout, same approach. Here's my time-bound stuff. Here's my to-do list. Here's my notes. Here's meals. Here's TV. I was tracking the pollen counts because the pollen was starting to ramp up. And my allergies always go crazy, so it's good for me to kind of keep an eye on what the pollen levels are and see how that ties to my my allergies, like a sore throat. So yeah, here's, just flip through, here's the first full week of March. And this is when I actually back planned this from the Commit30 when I decided to come back into this. But this layout is a good example of why I like rings and why I need a daily, because you can see here I rescheduled my haircut appointment and wrote the date that I moved it to. I made a note about my husband going out of town. I just scribbled some notes here. Here's where I was journaling a little bit. But I just feel like for some reason for me in rings, I can just be train of thought and whatever comes into my brain goes into my planner. And I don't feel that way in a bound book. In a bound book, I feel like I have to save space. And so I tend to edit whatever I put in there because I'm worried about running out of room. So here is the next week. And this is when I was out of town. So there wasn't a lot here on the to-do list, and you can see everything that was there got forwarded because we were playing and having fun in South Georgia. At some point, I think I'm going to go back and print a couple of pictures from our trip and stick them on these pages. You may have seen in my planner video, I think it was back in January or February. Let me look really quick. I can show you. I had started doing that, or maybe it was last year. Yeah, I guess it was last year. I had done the same thing last year because I have my, this is what I'm using for my archive. That's what I'm flipping through. It's just a Filofax, and I'm using that to archive my pages until the end of the year. But last year I had done that. I had printed out some pages with my Canon Ivy, and I really liked having them in there, so I'll probably go back and do that. So continuing to flip through. Now here, this was last week, and you can see I already started getting ready for April with my decorating. This is the dashboard that was in the Cocoa Daisy kit, which now I'm using because I liked the springtime colors. But this is the past week, and This particular, I just used a clip to clip the pages together, but here's the week. Here's where I was working on my menu for the coming week. This was yesterday, today, which I haven't written in because I've been spending time with my family, and then coming up into April. So this is the last week, and the way Cocoa Daisy's pages, excuse me, DIY Fish pages are, she doesn't put like the first and second. The way I work this is if the week is mostly in like March, then I will just write a 1 and a 2 here for April, and then when the time comes, see, I didn't print that week out. I just have the Saturday and Sunday dailies here. If it was the other way around, then the most of the week is in the new month, like this was February, Monday and Tuesday. Then I used the March page and I just wrote that in, and then I will glue in the February pages. So like here, you can't really tell, but I stuck those 2 pages together. So that's how I do it with the transition of the month. Very rarely do we get a really clean end of the month, right, where the Friday or, I mean, excuse me, the Sunday or Monday is the first day or the last day. So that is the March flip through. I will try to get myself together enough to walk you through a video on my whole planning system. If you guys are interested in that, I've done one in the past, but I can do an updated one to show you what I call the funnel method and how I plan. And I always do this because to me, that's visually in my head, that's what I think about as a funnel. And show you guys that in the coming weeks. So yeah, that's March in my planner. At this point, I'm planning to stay in Matilda. If I did anything different other than Matilda, it would be going back into this, but I don't have any plans to do that right now. And yeah, at this point, these 2 are probably going to go back on the shelf and just be something to look at and kind of chuckle at myself. But I got it out of my system, so I'm okay with it. I'm not going to beat myself up about it. It's just planning. It's not brain surgery. Nobody died, and it's okay that I had a little dalliance. Matilda will forgive me. Okay, so let me know how things are going for you with your April plans for your planner. I really was pleasantly surprised to see I was not the only one that was having insanity in March. Thank you for your comments and for the fact that you guys let me know that I was not the only one that was crazy. But now that you're getting ready for April, what are you doing? Are you sticking to what you are currently in? Or are you planning to make a change? A couple of you mentioned in your comments on my last video that I had talked you off the ledge with my video, and you were going to try to not pull the trigger on a particular purchase that you were thinking about making. So yay, that's great. And I hope that you find your planner piece for the month of April, and maybe we'll all dive into the spring with our planners settled. Maybe? I don't know. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys are all doing well, and I look forward to hearing from you in the comments on what your plans are for April. Talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.